what does it mean to you as really one of the great songwriters?
Well, I guess it's the highest accolade when songwriters honor songwriters. Songs have been sung for a long time on this planet, and some of us, when we're beginning, we steal some old songs, just to put new words on them. But then I began writing my own stuff, and I just found that it was so natural. It's like speaking. I can make a conversation with the song now, and so to be honored like this for all the work that I've done, it's a great buzz.
I was there, and each single that came out of yours, it just had each of them were so different.
Quite different, each of them, weren't they? At one point, nobody could put their finger on me, but because I had a hit producer, Mickey Most, and John Cameron, a great arranger, it was experimental, and every single, as you say, was quite different, but it entered the charts because we were just so excited about doing this all the time. And my fans were following me for this. Wonder what he's going to do next.
Epistle to Dippy, of course, was one of my favorites.
Yeah. And the most unusual single, which I don't know whether it went in the top 10, was called Epistle to Dippy. And it had violins, rock, guitar, and fiddle, and an electric fiddle, I think. And Jim Morrison of The Doors once said to me, my favorite line in a pop song. I said, what is it? He said, that line from Epistle to Dippy. I said, what was it, Jim? He said, elevator in the Brain Hotel. So I had fun with my lyrics, and I still do.
Well, and they were just such wonderful songs. And you mentioned Mickey Most. Does he deserve a lot of credit for the success?
Mickey taught me how to make recordings, really. I had a mic technique before then in my so-called folk years, but when I met Mickey, he realized I wanted to make 3-minute movies, and John Cameron would be the soundtrack writer, and I would compose the songs. So the trio was very powerful. But it wouldn't have all begun properly had I not walked into Denmark Street, our London Tin Pan Alley, at the age of maybe 18 plus, and was introduced to what was then known as Southern music, but now peer music, and I was made a set of demos. And so I began the right way, music publishing, before I had a recording, actually. And so that was very traditional and very correct, and I was nurtured all these years by peer music to excel and to keep writing those songs, yeah.
You mentioned your so-called folk period, and I was wondering why your so-called folk period.
Yeah, the so-called folk period. Well, really, it was simmering. Jazz was simmering, rock and roll was simmering, because as a boy, I was listening to 50s rock and roll, especially Buddy Holly, the Everly Brothers, and a bit of Elvis. So it just was easier to learn the roots in my first year. But in those early so-called folk records, you can hear the beginnings of other stuff coming along, and it came. But at heart, it's the guitar, the vocal, and the song for me, yeah.
Are you working on anything in particular now?
Well, yeah, always. I'm plowing through an enormous archive of analog and discovering songs that I'd forgotten I'd written. How about that? And very interesting songs, too. But just to prove, after the Songwriters Hall of Fame in 2012, just to prove to everybody I could, I made a new album. And so I went down to Nashville, and Peer Music was my host again. And I wandered through the history of popular music, which came from early folk music, as you know, African music, Latin music, and it all blended together and created what they call country music. And that was bluegrass, and then rockabilly and rock and roll. So I had a kind of a historical trip with my new album. It's called Shadows of Blue. You can get it on iTunes.
As we most certainly shall.